Namaste everyone, welcome to another episode of Beyond the Headlines with me, Deepti J. Verma. When we speak of the date 9/11, we speak of a global symbol, a collective experience, a date of shared historical significance for humanity in a way. Everyone knows what the date stands for, a very painful memory, a political milestone in world history. When the Twin Towers fell in New York on the fateful day, they brought down with them a false sense of security that we were all cocooned in. 9/11 shook us all. Till today, it stands for the day two civilizations, two ideas, two ways of life collided and human lives, dreams and hopes were collateral damage. War on terror began that day in 2001 and continues even after US troops left Afghanistan and Osama bin Laden is long gone. But what we find is several more Osamas in his place and the threat of terrorism being just as widespread in the world as ever. The threat of Islamist terrorism has continued in the form of Al-Qaeda, ISIS and now Taliban back in power in Afghanistan. Terrorist strikes continue in every continent, with India having its own share of terror trouble at home. What has followed since 2001 has also been shared by the world. The refugee crisis has spread to Europe and Central Asia, making it everyone's problem. But let's rewind a little. Not to 20 years ago, to this 9/11, but to another 9/11 that mattered just as much, if not more, to humanity. The one that continues to matter in a more positive way, paving a much more optimistic and peaceful path. Let's rewind to 128 years ago. 9/11, 1893 is when the great Swami Vivekananda first spoke in the Parliament of Religions. Those words continue to echo till today. David Foley, in his article, Swami Vivekananda or Sama, in this week's issue of Organiser, says, the September 11, 1893 speech of Swami Vivekananda in Chicago was a different event, transformative in the opposite direction than the 9/11 of 2001. Hindus announced their presence in the modern world through Swami Vivekananda, not with a war cry or a terrorist attack, but with a call for world peace, respect between religions, and an honoring of yoga and Vedanta, along with all the spiritual paths of humanity. Whereas the 9/11 terrorist attack was a call to violence and hatred, Swami Vivekananda's call was to end intolerance and exploitation, such as India was suffering from under British colonial rule at the time. Here are some main takeaways from the famous Chicago address that every millennial should know, remember, and quote freely in debates, especially to counter trolls peacefully, and also follow to contribute to a better world around us. Swami Vivekananda began his address by thanking for the cordial welcome and said, "I thank you in the name of the most ancient order of monks in the world. I thank you in the name of the mother of all religions, and I thank you in the name of millions and millions of Hindu people." The key words here being most ancient and mother. He recognized how the Hindu religion is the oldest way of life in the world, and just like a mother loves all its offsprings and offshoots in just the same way. He went on to say, "I'm proud to belong to a religion which has taught the world both tolerance and universal acceptance. We believe not only in universal toleration, but we accept all religions to be true." This is a big point, as he says that Hindus do not only tolerate diversity, but actually celebrate it by recognizing it to be just as true a path to reach God as their own. He quoted a daily prayer in India, which says, "As the different streams having their own sources in different places all mingle their water in the sea, so the different paths which men take through different tendencies, various though they appear, crooked or straight, all lead to thee." Which means no matter what your path may be, it points in one direction. For that matter, even if you do not believe in God, you can still be a good Hindu by just following the basic principles of peace, harmony, and social good. Swami Vivekananda also most naturally flows from religion to nation, as though there is no distinction between the two. And he said, I'm proud to belong to a nation which has sheltered the persecuted and the refugees of all religions and all nations of the earth. Here he was talking of the Israelites and Parsis belonging to the grand Zoroastrian legacy. Quoting the Gita, he said, whosoever comes to me, through whatsoever form, I reach him. All men are struggling through paths which in the end lead to me. And ending his famous address, he said, sectarianism, bigotry, and its horrible descendant, fanaticism, have filled the earth with violence, destroyed civilizations, and sent whole nations into despair. But their time has come. Hope the bell that tolled this morning in honor of this convention be the death knell of all fanaticism. The New York Herald wrote after Swamiji's speech, Vivekananda is undoubtedly the greatest figure in the Parliament of Religions. After hearing him, we feel how foolish it is to send missionaries to this learned nation. Those eminent intellectuals and scholars who are holding conferences today about dismantling global Hindutva should revisit this speech and ask what work is being done by missionaries in India. Swami Vivekananda further said in his address, if the Parliament of Religions has shown anything to the world, it is this. It has proved to the world that holiness, purity, and charity are not the exclusive possessions of any church in the world, and that every system has produced men and women of the most exalted character. In the face of this evidence, if anybody dreams of the exclusive survival of his own religion and the destruction of others, I pity him from the bottom of my heart and point out to him that upon the banner of every religion will soon be written, in spite of resistance, help and not fight, assimilation and not destruction, harmony and peace and not dissension. 128 years later, we hope the people belonging to this nation, descendants of Swami Vivekananda, should take this 9/11 legacy forward. One can't always use the logic that misery always begets militancy, as India having been invaded repeatedly and under 200 years of brutal colonial repression, robbing it of its wealth and peace in the form of partition, has still always responded with tolerance and spirituality. It's one's religious training that determines our reaction. Terrorist activities are almost always rooted in religious exclusivism and intolerance. David Frawley writes, if we introduce pluralism into spirituality, such as the Hindu view, recognizing there are many paths to the divine and the freedom to pursue whatever path we prefer, we can cut off the roots of this terrible violence. That's our legacy. Hindus have immigrated to all parts of Europe and the world and assimilated themselves in the most natural manner, wherever they are, celebrating the basic tenets of yoga, Vedanta, cosmology, alternative methods of healing like Ayurveda, and non-violence as the basis of the most social interaction. Hindutva not only believes in Vasudev Kutumbakam, that is the whole world is my family, and Lokaha Samastha Sukhino Bhavantu, all living beings be in peace, happy and in harmony, but also imbibes it in reality. If more people would have imbibed Vivekananda's teachings and the message of his Chicago address in their way of life, then maybe, just maybe, we could have avoided the other 9/11.